So with the reveal of the new 2.6 banners, there's one big question I've been seeing a lot throughout the internet. And that question is Venti worth it, or should I even get Venti? Now there are plenty of pros and cons to having Venti, but at this point is Venti even worth it because all the new updates, all the new characters, aka Kazuha, and people just don't want to waste their Palma gems. So I'm going to give off all the pros and cons to having Venti, and some key factors you want to know before you want to wish on Venti's banner. But ultimately, the decision will be up to you if you want to roll for the Venti banner or not, but I'm just going to give you some guidance on which path you want to go down. But I'm going to get this out of the way. If you think he's fun and you really like the character, just pull for him, it doesn't really matter. He's going to be a valuable asset either way, and if you just want to go for characters that are fun or you think look nice, then definitely roll for Venti no matter what. This video is supposed to be for people who aren't sure, or people who just want to look for the most meta option. Now the first thing I want to talk about are the pros for having Venti, because there's actually a good amount of things that Venti does really well that other characters can't really do. So if we take a look at Venti's talents, we have his elemental skill. His elemental skill is nice, but it's not all that crazy. It's just a good way to get energy. But his burst is the main thing about Venti, and I'm just going to say this now. Venti is the best crowd control character in the entire game. Better than Sucrose, better than Kazuha, and better than any other character that can group up enemies. Yeah, Sucrose and Kazuha can swirl up enemies like Kazuha with his skill, and Sucrose with his skill and burst. But Venti does this in a completely different type of way by just literally placing a black hole on the field that sucks up in a large AoE and can last for multiple waves of enemies. This is the main thing that makes him so valuable in certain teams, because he's just super good at grouping up enemies, swirling a lot of damage, because his burst also takes for a lot. That damage over time percent hits so many times, and if an element is absorbed, it'll get an additional 30% even more. It's actually crazy. And the thing is, its energy cost is only 60, and its passive down here actually gives 15 of it back when it ends. And if you absorb an element, all the party members of that element will also get 15 energy back too, so it's actually really crazy, and this passive allows you to have 100% uptime on Venti's burst. You can use the skill, then the burst, and by the time the burst is over, if you have enough energy recharge on your Venti, you'll already have the entire burst ready and back for action as soon as the cooldown ends. So although he lacks a utility like Kazuha and Sucrose, he definitely is the best one for the crowd control, and it's just not to be ignored. And also, as you probably know, Venti's burst is the best way to speedrun domains, spiral, or abyss, because you just group up all the enemies in one place at the very start, and then you can place a Bennett, bash them with your sub DPS or main DPS, and just do a whole lot of damage. And if there's waves of enemies, if you killed the first wave fast enough, the second wave will also just go straight into the black hole as well. So that's why he's really good in the situations with small to medium sized enemies, because he can just swirl them up so easily, and if you kill waves fast enough, you can kill the next wave super fast as well. It's actually really good. Now I'm going to do this domain real fast just to show you guys how good he is at speedrunning these. Start it, place that down, skill, burst, all the enemies go to one spot, and now I can just use everything at this one place, and everything's just gonna die. And yep, and I'm already done with the domain. I can get my rewards in 25 seconds. I can tell you right now, Kazuha and Sucrose can't do that. But the next thing I want to talk about is, of course, his Animo. He can use the Viridescent Rare set, which is probably the top 3 sets in the entire game to boost your damage. I'm not going to talk about this all too much because you probably already know how good it is, but, you know, that's just something to know. And then lastly, he is super easy to build. I mean, really easy. Honestly, you could have 4-piece Viridescent Rare on him with no artifacts leveled up, and then only level up his skill and burst, and he will still do his job. I mean, of course you're gonna miss out on a lot of damage if you don't level up his artifacts and stuff, but he's very beginner friendly and just really easy to build. You do not have to worry about it all too much. Just pop his burst and let him do all the working for you. And that's pretty much all for the pros. He's really easy to build, utilizes one of the best artifact sets in the entire game, and his burst is really good for speedrunning, the best CC ability in the entire game, does a lot of damage over time, and yeah, that's pretty much all. Now let's go into the cons of having Venti. You might be thinking, what are the cons of having Venti after you just told me all about that amazing burst? But I'm actually going to give you some right here. First, I want to talk about his constellations. Yes, I know a lot of people aren't really going to be getting the constellations, but if you want to go for constellations, here's one problem. If you go through all of his constellations, they only reduce Animo damage resistance. What I mean by that is if he swirls Pyro, the pyro resistance won't be reduced at all and only Venti's own damage, which is a problem because you want to reduce the resistance of your main DPS's element, but with all of Venti's constellations, it's only the Animo, so unless you're like running Zhao with him, it's not really going to be that useful at all. The only one that does it is C6, and that's only by 20%. So honestly, Venti's constellations are just lacking, to be honest. They're just not that crazy amazing. They're not bad, but they're, they're alright. And I mean, his C1 is absolutely terrible though. This is trash. So yeah, his constellations aren't that nice. And then finally, and probably the biggest thing about Venti, is that his burst crowd controls, and then that's all it does. Unlike Zuko, she can transfer her elemental mastery to her teammates, and Kazuha can give elemental damage bonuses based off his elemental mastery, so they both do a lot of damage and give buffs to the team. But Venti doesn't really do anything else like that. He pops his burst, he crowd controls, he gets some energy back, and then he just doesn't do anything else. So although it's the best crowd control ability in the entire game by a long shot, that's pretty much all he is. And then the last con I want to talk about is Spiral Abyss. We've started to get a lot more bosses and bigger enemies in the Spiral Abyss, which actually means Venti's burst can't really suck him up as well, so his crowd control ability goes way down. As you can see at these lower floors, we get a lot more smaller enemies that can be easily sucked up by his burst. But even in floor 10, we go to chamber 1, chamber 2, and then in chamber 3 you get Abyss Lectors and Heralds, which don't go to his burst as easily. And then we start getting Geo Bishops, and then we get the big Electro Dogs, which don't go into the burst as easily, also with more Lectors. And then definitely for floor 12, where we get big Bishops, we get Wound Raiders, Gordon Wolf Lords, and then the giant Bishops from Economia. They have been putting a lot more bosses and big enemies in here, so Venti's burst actually gets more useless and useless the more bosses they put in here. So that's another big con to Venti. So overall, should you get Venti? He has the best crowd control ability in the entire game for speedrunning and more. He's Animo, so you can use the viability set, and he's really easy to build. But I'm not sure because there's one character that's glaring out at me. And that character is Kazuha. For the next update, we aren't getting Kazuha, and the longer we don't get him, the closer his rerun is going to be. And since Venti doesn't give any other bonuses other than being crowd control, and Kazuha gives so much elemental damage bonuses, so if I was forced to choose between these two, I would definitely choose Kazuha over Venti without a doubt. He has pretty good CC, it gives a lot of damage bonuses everywhere out the wazoo, and it's actually crazy. And then on top of that, you can use the viability set, which can reduce resistance. He is absolutely cracked. But if you don't have Sucrose or not wanting Kazuha, then Venti is definitely a good pick nonetheless. But Kazuha is just way better. So if you've been saving for Kazuha, skip Venti. Kazuha is going to be much better. I know it's going to be hard not to wish since we've been waiting for so long for his rerun, but you're just going to have to trust me on this. You're going to want Kazuha more than Venti. Only wish for Venti if you don't want to use Sucrose or don't have Sucrose, or you don't want Kazuha. That's honestly the only time where I think you should be really wishing for Venti, because he gives no other bonuses, and Spiral Abyss has becoming more boss and heavy enemy based, where he's actually kinda getting more useless. And there you go, that tells you if Venti is worth it or not. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and make sure you use your Power Dips accordingly, because Venti is coming up, and then Kazuha is going to be coming up very soon, I promise. So that's pretty much all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.